Hello, everyone. I really apologize to everyone in the semester that was happening fall 2021 because you didn't get this presentation until late in the semester. For everybody else, it should be right on target. Anyway, this is the presentation that talks about judicial opinions, so case law, which is really, when people talk about legal research, sort of the bulk of what attorneys do, at least when they research. It's not as important for law librarians, but we should know what it is and how to do it, and then all of the tools that you use. But for the most part, in my career at least, I found that rarely was I asked to do research, case law research. And I think that's because it's really, really, it's taught in law school, and it really is the basis of all of the Westlaw and Lexis training that they have. And so lawyers are really taught that legal research is case law research, which, now that I've been doing this and having done a lot of, being a law librarian, I really question why that they do it that way. I think that a lot has been written about legal research training in law schools, and a lot of people think it needs reform, and I'm one of those people because I don't think I was prepared by law school to practice law when I came out. And I had to do a lot of learning on my own and with the help of mentors and employers, other attorneys, and sometimes paralegals and legal secretaries. So anyway, this is the part about that. I took the date information off of this so you won't know how old this material is. And though I may have to redo it if I miss something. So anyway. Finding cases. So you can refer to this in a lot of ways. Cases can be case law, cases, opinions, lawsuits. Trying to think of what else. There's lots of different words for it. So you really kind of have to know all the lingo, and you've seen in the reference questions that attorneys use a lot of jargon, librarians use a lot of jargon, maybe more. And as law librarians, we have to be aware that our library jargon is different from law jargon, and we have to sort of shift the way that we're speaking when we speak to someone who's not a librarian or not in library school. It's happened to me yesterday where a faculty member here was complaining about an acronym that a co-presenter was using in a presentation, and it was a library jargon term, and she did not define it. So we just have to always think that way throughout our careers. Anyway, and so in this presentation, we're going to cover reporters, we're going to cover digest, citators, and citation, which now I'm like, I've just been going along thinking that you had already learned these things. And some of you in 2021 really hadn't. So I apologize to those people. So case law. We're going to talk about what a judicial system is, which is a little bit of review, how it functions, what its products are, which we did cover the judicial products. So we talked about PACER and looking at a docket and looking at the pleadings and things like that. So case law, that's one of the final products or most important products or the end products of the judicial system. What gets reported? So not everything gets reported. Decisions, so the final decisions, and then final interlocutory opinions. And it took me forever to learn that. And I don't think I really knew that until fully understood it until I've been teaching this class for several years. So it means any kind of motions that end the litigation before you get to the final decision. So before trial, so motions for summary judgment can result in a judicial opinion that's published. There's a lot that way because most cases don't actually go to trial. So most end early. And that can still create law. There's a lot of law on sort of this early ending of cases. And that's a procedural thing. And we did cover that, or we will cover that in the rules of civil procedure. So there's other judicial products, as we've covered, dockets, the filings or pleadings, and then occasionally you have transcripts or deposition discovery products that aren't part of case law. You can see here that this is the South African law reports. They're bound. You don't see these very often. These are from South Africa, right? But they all look similar. They're large sets of books. They usually have gold lettering on them. It's just, they're very sort of heavy binding, but very thin sheets inside. That's what they look like. This is a picture of the Southwestern Reporter Texas cases. So these are just the Texas opinions that are reported within the Southwestern Reporter. So it reduces the number of books you have to have on the shelf if you're in Texas. You don't have, and then you don't get the Arkansas cases, or I can't ever remember who else is in the Southwestern Reporter. So off the top of my head, I know Arkansas is in there. So reporters have the final opinions of the cases or the final interlocutory decisions, and they are printed in chronological order. So there's no table of contents, there's no topical breakdown. They're just printed one after the other, and even on the same page. And I think I showed you just those little quick videos that I made where the sound quality was poor, showed you what those things look like. So the volume number is like 1 through 999, and then they start what's called a new series. And so those series are noted by numbers, and then they're abbreviated in a certain way. So Southwestern Reporter would be SW, and then the second series would be SW2D. They don't use the N or the R in second and third. It's just one of those legal abbreviation things. So you'll see with the Federal Reporter, it would be F. The Federal Reporter second series would be F2D, F3D, etc. And apparently the Federal Reporter is now in its fourth series, and I think that just happened. I think that's right. Yeah. So now I've dated this video, so I can't use it for 10 years. And in citation, the first number of the citation is the volume number. So you might have 73 Southwestern Reporter. This is the second or third. And then the page number would be the third. So that's the number on where the case starts. I was really, when I first made this slide deck, I was sort of new in my job as a copyright officer here at Texas State, and I was really thought that captions were important for the stuff. These are the different reporters, and this is really one of the reasons I wanted to get this out today, because it helps you understand how this stuff works, just to see what all these different series and where you could go for different things. And it's something on Westlaw and Lexis that you can't really visualize. You can't visualize the packets of information. I think that in the future, they'll realize that. And I know there's neural network capability now. I mean, I think you saw that, was it Westlaw? That had it. So I think that there will be visualizations that will help you understand which packet the different results come in. So I think that's kind of something that we still need from our print, the way our brains have developed the print system. It's been in place for hundreds of years. That's just something to think about. So West has a national reporter system. This is just something that West has come up with. It's not dictated by the legal authorities. They're just the last man standing. Besides Lexis, West really dominates the at least the print publication, and they have this national reporter system. They have federal reporters, and so for federal reporters, these are I've listed, and I may be missing some, but there are Supreme Court opinions, and they fall in the United States reports, the Supreme Court reporter, so you can see the abbreviations after that, and then the United States Supreme Court reports lawyers edition. I want to think that might have been a Lexis product. I'm a little bit. These things change, and I haven't looked in a while, so I apologize. So sometimes you'll see when you have a citation, you'll see all three of these cited, and that's called a parallel citation. So a lot of times an opinion will be published in multiple reporters. And so you can cite, I think sometimes you have to use there's different rules, Blue Book rules, citation rules that will say what you have to cite. And just know that it's the same case, but it's just been published in different reporters for different reasons. Sometimes there are topical reporters. So you have something like, employment law reporter, environmental law reporter, and they'll have a different site. That's why you get those long citations sometimes. This citation for lawyers edition just doesn't look right to me, but maybe because I haven't seen it in a while. Anyway, I've got to check all this stuff again, I feel like. So Court of Appeals opinions, they're going to be published in the Federal Reporter. And that's now in its 4th series. So there's a lot of these, right? So when you see these on Westlaw and Lexis, it's really the same thing that's in the print. It's just online. Really it is. It looks a little bit different, but it's basically all the same information with a little more functionality because of hyperlinking that's available online. With Lexis, you still have the citation to the West abbreviations, but you also will have a Lexis number. So there is some way of going back and forth, and the pagination will be indicated. You'll see it when you scroll down. There's the pagination that's in the print official reporter will be noted. So you'll be able to cite to the official reporter still using Westlaw or Lexis. And I apologize I cannot show you this on Lexis because by the time I logged into my Lexis trial, it was over. I did not realize it was going to be so short. That's a little dig at Lexis. Hopefully you guys still have a Lexis trial, and if you don't, I apologize. So district court opinions, and remember that the district court is the trial court. That's the lowest court, right? So they'll hear a case or deal with a case, and that might get some reports. So that's going to be published in Federal Supplement. Then if it's appealed, it goes to the Court of Appeals. And that's going to get, the end of that might get reported in the Federal Reporter. And then if it goes to the Supreme Court, those are going to be. So you can see that Supreme Court opinions, there's not going to be as many. It's not, you'd think that, I don't know that I've ever really thought about it before, but there shouldn't be as many. There should be more that are in the Federal Supplement. That's not always the case because not all of them get reported. Not everything gets reported that gets ruled on. So, and then you have now, they've been around for like 10 years, but it's fairly new. You have Court of Appeals opinions that are not published in the Federal Reporter. So the judge decides what's going to be published or unpublished. And this question of what gets published, what doesn't get published, is different in from state to state, as far as like the rules about that. There's federal rules about it, and then there's citation rules about can you cite to in a legal brief? Can you cite to an unpublished case? They're not supposed to have the effect of law, but there's a lot of literature on that and discussion about that. And so that's an area that I have not researched fully, and it has changed significantly since I was in school. So I'm just going to leave it up to you if you want to go down that rabbit hole. It's very interesting, and it has a lot of, to me, there's a lot of thinking to do about the role of libraries, and I think the role of like information is very interesting. And it also has like a social justice aspect. You know, who decides what's important, what's not important, and who says you can't use something that might be helpful to you. So there's a lot out there. It's deep. Bankruptcy court opinion. So that's a topical reporter, but it's a large reporter. And there's separate federal bankruptcy courts. So that's kind of one reason they get their own. So all bankruptcy court opinions go in the bankruptcy court reporter, which their abbreviation is BR. Now, all of these sets look similar. So if you see them on the shelves, most of these have a sort of tan binding. The Supreme Court, some of them are blue. So you've probably seen them before in photos and things like that. So if you're in the library, you kind of have to, they'll just take up huge amounts of stacks in a print library. Though sometimes they'll put the others in storage. They'll only keep the most recent because generally you're only citing to recent cases. This isn't always the case. I mean, there's plenty of old cases that are still good law and still really important and still get cited. But that's just a safe space. Now that we have Westlaw and Lexis and things like that, it's really not as important that we keep the print reporters on the shelves. In fact, that's a whole other discussion. Should we even keep them? Do we even need them? They're just taking up space. Does anybody even use them? That's a good question, except for photo ops. There's also the federal rules decisions, which are district court opinions about federal rules of procedure and evidence. And to be honest, that's another thing that I'm like, I knew about the FRD and I'd used it before and cited to it before, but I don't think I quite grokked like what was in there and what wasn't in there. So this is something you don't really learn too much. I mean, nobody does a slide like this and explain this to you. So but it's important for librarians, right? We need to know where the things are and what the sources have in them, right? So then you have another series of state and regional reporters, and these are still dominated by West. And then you have topical reporters, which I don't know why I didn't put it on here. So regional reporters. This is a very important sort of graphic, I think. It shows you where what state's state law gets reported in the regional reporters published by West. And this is very confusing because it doesn't match the federal circuits, which are federal law and appellate cases. It's what states are in your federal circuit that hears cases, right? So that's a court system thing. So it's weird that it would be different, but it is very different. And so there's two maps. There's one of the federal circuits, right? All the states that are in each circuit. We're in the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit states are not the same as the Southwestern reporter. it's one of those things about the law that it's like it's organic, legal resources organically developed. So there's lots of these sort of strange, confusing things that you think, oh, let's go back and fix that. Kind of like moving to the metric system. It's like, oh, this is clunky. But we have, it is what it is and nobody wants to change it because almost changing it would be confusing too. So that's why it sort of is like what it is. And what's interesting about this is that there's really no need for us to continue having these publication groupings now that we're in the digital age. But we still do, right? Because now it used to be that you would only collect the regional reporters for your area. You didn't really need to have all of them, right? Or maybe just one set locally, like in your state law library, you'd have a set of Pacific reporters, but you really didn't need to use that because you're really not relying in your state. You're not relying on Washington state law in anybody's practice, right? So, but now that we have Westlaw and Lexis, it's really, we just have, access to everything. I mean, you could just have Texas. I don't know if they let you pair it out that way, but there's really no reason to have this regional grouping, right? Because it doesn't have any legal effect. It's really just an artifact of publication, print publication, but still it persists. So it's just one of those weird things that can be very confusing when you're actually in an online environment because you don't understand the purpose of it. And it really just had this sort of, has this historical purpose. Yeah, I just wanted to show you. See, so this is the federal circuits, right? So it's different, right? So the Fifth Circuit is Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas, and Arkansas isn't in there. But it just and the federal circuit, it deals with federal, so it's not. I mean, maybe other people don't have a problem with this, but I'm just like, this is all kind of crazy, and it makes it difficult for me to remember what states are on what circuits. Now, if I was practicing, if I was an appellate attorney, I would probably know this, right? Just like I couldn't not know it, right? Because I'm doing the work in there. But as a librarian, I find it very confusing. So, federal courts, this is sort of a review. Federal courts, you have access to different products, right? So with the cases that are still ongoing, so still live cases, still open cases. I think the terminology is open or closed. Something's closed, it means it's ended. The files are still there, but there's no ongoing action on it. So you have the dockets, the filings, and then with the case law, you have opinions, right? And so they are in a different sort of database or a different publication. So for the judicial products that aren't cases, you have Courts Web, which I don't know if it still works. It does. Let's see if it works. Takes us out. Yeah, it's still going on. I hope that didn't mess up our Panopto. Pacer, you've had access to Pacer. Westlaw is now just Westlaw. I don't think they call it Westlaw next. They just call it Westlaw. And you do have access to some filings on there. Same for Lexis, but not everything. It's really going to be sort of the most requested things they've already sort of pulled in. And it is expensive. Most of the time, it's easier to get it off of Pacer, but once again, you have to have a log on, so you have to sign up. But I find that that's the sort of the cheapest way of doing it. And, it's clunky, but you can, once you learn how to get around, you can hop on there. That's just going to be federal. Occasionally, if you lose access to Westlaw and you're having trouble finding your federal opinion free online, you can get that via Pacer. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Some things are not available online on Google Scholar cases or things like that. A lot of times they don't have all the district court opinions. So if you're looking for kind of a rare, hard to find district court opinion that you're not seeing free online through, Justy or Find Law or some other place, you can go on to Pacer and look it up with some information about the case. And you'll go into the docket, and then it should be one of the filings at the end of the docket. So just know that that's kind of only law librarians probably think to do that. Attorneys probably think about it too, but it's just sort of something to keep in your pocket. Here's the federal court system. This is just a review. You have the district courts, you have a lot of them, then you have less courts of appeal, and then just the one Supreme Court. And here's a more detailed, it's much more confusing than it really looks. You don't have to memorize any of this. You can always look this stuff up, but just know that it's a little bit more confusing, and some of these, you can I think this is a Westlaw slide. You can see the databases that have, like the U.S. Tax Court. There's a database, and these are the abbreviations for those databases. This is an old slide. It used to be on Westlaw that you could just go into each database by their identifier. Now it's a little more streamlined, and they don't use those identifiers. You may still be able to plug in the identifier in the search and pull and get there. So digest, and this is the main reason for you 2021 people that I had to get this up today, is because I think you have a question about the digests in your discussion. And I was like, I don't remember this. And I try to go back and watch, I redo the readings and I watch the videos just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And I was missing this. And so we're going to talk a little bit about digests. Print digests were the way that you could topically find cases. They're kind of the finding aid, the table of contents, or the index that you would use for those reporters. So remember, the reporters are just published in chronological order. So say you wanted to find a case on, let's see, all I can think of is discrimination. So sex discrimination, and you want to find sex discrimination in, maybe you want to find or maybe the sovereignty question. So you want to find cases that deal with your issue, and you want to look it up. So you have the question, can the federal government sue states for money damages, right? I think that was Audrey's question in 2021. So you have that question, and then you're like, okay, where do I go? You can start with a digest, right? Because it's kind of like that table of contents or index for those reporters. Because the reporters, what are you going to do? Just read them all? There's no way to access that information without a finding aid. Now, Westlaw has this digest information incorporated into its algorithms with some other additional information that is proprietary, that we can't know. But this digest information is what went in to build Westlaw and Lexis. And Lexis, do they have their own digest? I don't know. That's a good question. So West has this whole American digest system. Oh, Lexis does have a digest system. I don't know that they have print digests. They may do, but I don't remember. So West has this whole digest system, and basically, I don't know if I think I got rid of the book, but they publish a print copy of just the outline that is the digest, right? Just the outline, not any of the information about the cases, just the outline of the law. And it's basically an outline of the law by topic. And it's thick, just the outline for the whole system is a thick book with little thin paper. So it's very detailed. It's not as detailed as it needs to be in some areas. So as the law developed, the digest has to catch up with it. So I remember when I was a law librarian, and the environmental key numbers was too broad. There was too much content under a single key number or a small subset of key numbers, and so it really wasn't useful. And now I'm sure that's not the case, but there is some catch-up time. So if you have a rapidly developing area of the law, the digest by itself is not that effective. It's better to try using Westlaw or Lexis because there's other stuff besides just the digest incorporated there. So it's a finding aid. It does have incorporated into it the key number system. Now the key number system, it's different for Lexis. They call theirs something else, but they have an outline too. And it's topics, but they use this key so that you'll have a topic and then a key, and then that has a number. So it's just like a marketing thing. You don't really, key number is, it's basically just an outline, right? And you'll have a topic, and then a key number is just a number, and then you can always match. So that topic should match across all products, all jurisdictions. So it is helpful if you once you find that key number for that sovereignty question, you should be able to look it up in any reporter by that key number, right? So that can be handy. And then in Westlaw, if the key numbers, all of the head notes, so there's summaries. Every case is assigned these key numbers. So they'll have like a portion of the case that will deal with your topic, and it will be assigned that key number, and then it will be summarized at the top of the case in what's called head notes. Lexis has the same thing. Theirs just operates in a slightly different way. They use direct quotes. West has paraphrase or summarized, right? That's really the only difference. And so from product to product. So you can just look at a case, right, within Westlaw or in the print form, find that head note that you like, right? And in Westlaw, you can just click on it and pull up other cases that deal with that same topic, right? So it's a research aid, right? So within the digest, it's very similar to kind of the head notes in a way. It's a summary of the case. So you'll find your topic, and then under your topic will be summaries of cases on point. And it'll be just a short, brief blurb about the topic and how the case addresses that topic. And then there'll be information about that case, like a citation, the jurisdiction. And these are in order, they're in reverse chronological order by highest court. And that's, there's variations on that, but that's basically all you need to know. And there's subtopics. So the key number is kind of just like an outline. It goes out. And so you can take the print and get sort of where you need to be, excuse me, where you need to be topic-wise, and then you can flip through and kind of scan and read the little blurbs and see, oh, wait, this one over here. So it is useful, especially in print. It's a useful way to do research. Sometimes it's faster than Westlaw because you don't have false hits, which we've already seen in class. People are like, I use the search terms, but it's pulling me up something that doesn't match what I need, right? You don't have that with the print digest because somebody has sort of fixed this all out. It's not just AI. Excuse me. Now, Westlaw now has some corrections within, so it's a learning system. So it's learning and correcting itself by monitoring what people click on. So when you do a search and then you have people click on certain things, then that teaches Westlaw, the system, it teaches the program that those are the most important things. So then for everybody else, it starts moving those things up. So I know that much about the system. So for a well-researched area of the law, you will have better luck with your Westlaw results. For something that is new or not completely fleshed out, it will be more difficult. So just know that for a very difficult new idea, it's going to be very difficult in the digest because the digest hasn't caught up. And it may be difficult in Westlaw and Lexis as well because the system hasn't had time to learn about it. So if you have something really interesting and new that hasn't maybe had a lot of law developed on it, your best bet is probably to use something more like a restatement or something like law reviews, sort of that's forward looking. That's what I would do. And there may not be cases on what you're looking for. I know in my area there's not a whole lot of higher ed cases on fair use or copyright in education. There's like, a handful. And so, if I was researching that from scratch, I'd be like, what's going on? There's not a lot of guidance, but there just isn't. So we have, in my field, we have best practices. So we have sort of community standards that we rely on, and we hope that they would have some persuasive authority if we ever got to trial. They don't have any actual authority. So anyway, the Federal Practice Digest, we're probably in the 6th, I don't know, but the 5th covers federal cases. So all the Supreme Court cases, Fed cases, and FSUP would be in there, and that covers the date range of that series. Now, typically you only need that last series, maybe the one before it, because you're only going to be researching, you only want current stuff. So you're going to, usually you only want current stuff. So you're going to be looking for that current stuff. If you're doing historical research, then you could use the old ones. And you can see Federal Practice Digest 4th, 1983 to present. These are really not, even when I left the law firm in 2013, and even then people were not, I think we took these off the shelf because people weren't using the digest. They were just using Westlaw. I still think that was probably a mistake. I use the digest all the time. I use the Federal Practice Digest all the time. I found them really helpful to find things. You see here the Texas Digest 2nd covers Texas state and federal cases going all the way back. Now, 1886 to present. I don't know that. I think that may be Texas Digest and Texas Digest 2nd. Maybe not though. Maybe the first Texas Digest is just the really early Texas stuff. Yeah, I think that's correct. So here's a LibGuide that is helpful. Once you learn how to use these things, you just can't forget. It's really easy to use them, but it's a little bit of an archaic, strange thing. So you do have to kind of go through it. Here's an example. Here's another, this is from a guide. There's lots of guides out there. Rely on your LibGuides. So this is a slide from West. This is an example of a page, like a typical page from a digest. And this is from the this is from the Southeast Digest 2nd, which is weird. I don't know why. Oh, it's because it's from South Carolina. So that they're in the Southeast Digest, right? And I should have said that you have those state reporter systems, right? So you have those, I said, oh, it's so confusing. The state law is in those state reporters. Well, there are also state law digests and regional digests, right? So the Southeastern Digest is its own thing. In Texas, we have a Texas-specific digest, which, thank goodness, because it's just a little bit less confusing. But there is a Southeast one, so it has several states. You can see North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia are here. And I only know that because of this abbreviation. So you see here, there is, this talks about what the jurisdiction was. So it was a South Carolina state appellate court. And this is the date. And you have here below it, you have the citation. So you could go out to the Southeast Reporter and pull this case. Or if you had the South Carolina Reporter, so they have two. They have the regional reporter and a state reporter. You could pull that case. And lawyers are always encouraged to actually read the case because this could be wrong. It could be that this is not the holding of the case. It could just be dicta. Which means that it's not really law. It's just persuasive. The court wasn't actually ruling on this issue. It was just maybe, talking about how it might rule, hypothetically. And that really doesn't have the weight of law. So you always have to read the case and make sure that it does stand for the proposition that you want it to stand for. Not everybody does this, even attorneys, and so sometimes you'll get cases that are cited for the wrong thing, going way back in time, which can be very interesting research in itself, tracing back sort of the errors in the law. You see here they also have a reference to this code 1976, and that would be a state statute. So you could pull up that state statute as well. So that's kind of full of information, and everything is pretty much like that. And you can see that on this part, this is the next keynote under animals. So here, this is 97, and there must not be anything for 98, whatever that is. And the way the digests are, you have the full outline for that volume, or that not that volume, that topic. So for animals, at the beginning of each digest volume, the full outline for animals would be there in a kind of a rough form, and then a more detailed full outline is behind that, and then you start having the blurbs like this. So if we wanted to find out what key number 98 is in a print form, we could go back to the beginning of the volume and see, and it'll say what it is. So 99 is persons liable for injuries, I guess, created by animals, or maybe done to animals or done by animals. You don't know. There's probably different keynotes for all of those things. That's where you would find those cases, and they're going to continue on the next pages. And you can see it's very similar. This was North Carolina state case. If there's no appellate or district court, that means it was a Supreme Court case, which always has more weight. Okay. The digests have what's called a descriptive word index in the volumes at the end. They may have them within the... No, I think they're at the end. The reporters will also have this within the reporter. So each volume of the reporter will have a little mini descriptive word index for that reporter. I believe that's correct. I think that's correct. It's been a while since I pulled one. The descriptive word index is really helpful. So if you don't know all of the legal terms of art or the jargon, and you just have some words, you can go back to that descriptive word index and look, say, for animals, and find. So here's an example. The landlord didn't replace a bulb, and someone fell down the flight of stairs. So you could start looking in that descriptive word index for landlord, tenant, things like that. And then one of them, they say, is going to lead you to that key number. And sometimes it takes a while to find what the words that West uses, the words that are used in the law. Sometimes it's not intuitive. It's not the way people speak in modern day. These are some strange words that are still being used. And it's just because it's a legal concept, and the law is sort of slow to change fundamentally, I guess. And so a lot of this archaic stuff keeps getting used. There's also words and phrases. And I know this is all, words and phrases I also believe are in each reporter, sort of the words and phrases. I could be wrong about that. But there is a whole set of West called words and phrases, and that's what you see in this illustration. But each digest also has words and phrases volumes at the back. And these are specific terms of art to the law that will be defined in the blurbs that come after it. So you have vicious disposition is a term of art, and you have that it was defined in the Delaware Superior Court, which is I believe it is a trial court, like a lower court, in 1899, and this is the case. And this can be really useful if you want to sort of trace back or find a definition of something. And you see here that, vicious dog, that's why I why I pulled this, or maybe West was pulling this. This is all just West content. So words and phrases, you may not see it on the shelves, but no, it's in Westlaw. So sometimes it'll, sometimes it's kind of helping you. If you find it, it's pulling that information. I don't know if it's a database. I would hope it would still be a database, but I'm not sure. But in any case, it is still incorporated in all of the digests, the federal digest, the state digest, anything by West. It's still incorporated in the back. So you can still rely on it, even if you don't have access to the full set. Oh, no, I didn't. I hate it when I do that. Let me go back. Where is it? Okay, there we go. Sorry. This must be a clickable link. Okay, so now we get to citators, and this has come up a lot, and people have asked me questions about this, and I'm like, acting like you know about it, because for you 21 people, you don't know about it. I mean, maybe I've explained it in passing, but we didn't really cover it full out. So how do you know if a law is still good law? You have to check it in a citator, because the reporters don't get updated. So they're just published one after the other in chronological order, and nobody goes back and marks them out or cuts them out. Law schools have a problem with students who are doing common research projects that students will cut out cases. You will see that. And you may see it in a public law library. People will cut those out to keep their fellow students from finding a case. It's really a creepy thing, but maybe shows the sociopathy of people who go to law school, a small percentage. But yeah, no, that's a real problem. So anyway, but that doesn't happen if you have like a case that's been overturned. So it's bad law. It's not law anymore. It's still in the reporter. So you have to find out whether it's good or not. It's still probably being printed in the digest and everything. There's no way of knowing in those print sources without looking at a citator. Now, the citators used to be in print, and they're really difficult to use. Shepard's was the first one. It is now a Lexis product. So if you hear somebody saying, can you Shepardize this case? Basically what they want is you to run a key cite or a Shepard's or a citator report on it. They may not just want to see if it's good law. They may want to get some research off of it as well, because that's another really good thing that a citator can do. It's going to pull all the cases that cite to that case. And so those cases can may be helpful. And both Lexis and Westlaw and probably all the citators will note the keynotes that come up in those cases. So that can be helpful. If you see that a case is cited, you're like, I don't know, I don't want to read the whole thing. You can see which keynotes are cited. So if you say, oh, headnote 4 is the one I'm looking for, and you can go and pull just the ones that deal with headnote number 4 in that case. So it can be very useful for very quickly sorting out which cases you want to look at and which you don't really, because sometimes there's a whole lot. They are used for a law that's other than cases. So statutes are also covered in the citators, and now regulations. So I don't think when I was in school even regulations were done, and I think statutes were fairly new. But now almost everything gets checked in the citator. You won't see secondary sources get checked there, to my knowledge. Now I could be wrong. That makes me want to go and check. But you can look up law. So you can look up a statute, and what the citator information will tell you is, how have cases handled that statute? And is there any pending legislation that would change that statute? So that will come up. It's a quick way of doing kind of some quick research. And also it can help you with the legislative history, because that should be there too. On Shepard's, I just am relying, because I don't typically have a long access to Lexis, I'm just using their product, their information. So this may be old, but Lexis does have a citator. It's the first citator. It was in print first, and when I was in school, I had to learn how to use it. And until very recently, Texas State, which has a paralegal program and a legal studies program, we don't have a law school. They had it in print, and I was like, nobody has this in print. State Law Library doesn't have it in print, to my knowledge. Nobody does it this way anymore, so we don't need to teach it that way anymore. And it was quite difficult. Basically, you had a series of pamphlets, and you had to check multiple pamphlets for each case. So it's quite time consuming, confusing, and just sort of the kind of thing that a law librarian is going to teach you and law librarians are going to know how to do, but we don't need to do it anymore. So it's kind of the first casualty of online stuff. There's been other casualties, but to me, there's no reason to do this in print anymore. Westlaw also has one. And I don't know why I don't have an image here, but it's they operate similarly. You might get different results running one or the other. Every once in a while, someone will come up with errors. Westlaw is better than Lexis. And then different people have their own preferences for one or the other. I've used both, and I really don't. I really don't care. They're both pretty useful. They both have stolen sort of features from each other. One will develop a feature and the other one will do it. And they've had lots of lawsuits back and forth about, the stealing of the features and whether they're, which ones are copyrightable. And, they have lots of trademarks and things like that overall. So they call things differently, but they're pretty much the same. So now we get to legal citation. So there is a legal free citation guide, which might be helpful for you to look at just to get the idea of it. This Cornell one, it is based on the Blue Book. So it's very similar, but it isn't the Blue Book. And the Blue Book is the one that's really, I think, required in most legal situations, most courts. There may be some exceptions, but not in Texas, to my knowledge. So the Blue Book, it looks like this. We are now in, I don't know what edition. It comes up with an edition every so often. It is, it's a citation guide, but it's also like a style guide in a way too. So it's kind of like APA, but it's for the legal field, right? So it tells you how to format your citations for anything you might want to cite, right? It's a little behind on, social media and stuff like that. They may have that in there now, but, that's why it gets updated. It's still one of those things that, like, I really like it. Like, it's my favorite kind of citation guide. And I had to learn like APA, you have to learn different ones. And I don't like those nearly as much as Blue Book. It is also the one that most other style guides will refer to for legal citation. So APA says if you have a legal authority, you need to cite it using Blue Book. And that's because, it's just very specific, and it's to me, it's very easy to find things using, if everything is put in this style, it's very easy to find things. And so this guide gives you sort of a step-by-step. Most people are going to buy their own copy as a desk book. And if you're going to stay in this field, I recommend that you buy your own copy just to have it. It's really, you can't do without it. It is published by the editors of the law reviews of like I want to say Penn State. I can't remember. Harvard. I can't remember who, but there's like Harvard and some other Ivy League law schools are the ones that do it. There's people complain about it online all the time, but it's a standard. So, and then there's the Green Book, which is the Texas Rules of Form, and it's in a much later edition as well. But that's really, you need it. It's slimmer. It's put out by the editors of the Texas Law Review. It's definitely necessary in Texas because we have very specific materials in very specific ways that the Texas courts require us to cite to Texas court opinions, specifically Texas Supreme Court opinions and appellate opinions. So there's very useful tables. Really, again, you'd have to have your own copy. The good thing about the Green Book and the Blue Book is there's cheat sheets in the inside covers and the back covers of both that have sort of the common way of citing a case, the common way of citing a statute, the common way of citing administrative regulations, the common way. So they put all of the common things. So you can really just follow that example for most things, and then really sort of delve into it for tables of abbreviations. There's a certain way you abbreviate things. It's not like we do in other styles and other forms of writing. So there's just different formatting changes. So it's very specific, but librarians are really the go-to people. Now, a lot of people who were on their law reviews at their schools, they had to cite check or check the formatting and check. That was part of being on their law reviews. So they may enjoy this and not need your help. But some people are not that into it and need librarian help. So you kind of have to be an expert on it. So you get to where you are an expert on it. And sometimes they'll be writing something and they need you to put everything to check the format. And so that's one thing you're asked to do is go through and check the format. There's probably automated ways of doing this now, but I always enjoyed doing that. It's like correcting someone's work. So, here it is. Citation form, charts. We have this thing called petition history in Texas, and it has changed over time. So if you're dealing with something that is, pre-1989 or some crazy cutoff date, you have to cite it differently, and you have to know. So there's these great tables in there, and to me, it's really easy to use the tables to figure out how you're supposed to do it. So it's not very expensive. So that's it for this, and I hope this kind of helps round out information. It's not really everything, but it's kind of a high level, just sort of quick explanation of how you can use the digest and how you can find material that's in print. So anyway, that's it.